very excited to have AJ and Shelly from U Beauty today. They've been a customer for a very long time, though, as Shelly and I were talking a minute ago, it's actually my first time meeting her. So I'm very excited to have this conversation. And we're going to talk about U Beauty. I'm sure we'll talk about AI. I'll try not to talk about tariffs. I feel like that's old news and like maybe not super relevant for you guys. But yeah, so I'm Aaron, one of the founders of Orita. We do AI customer segmentation for a bunch of brands, but been in ecom for a while. And there are a few brands that really stand out in particular in how they've grown and how tight they are with their community and their customer base. And you guys are one of them. So anyway, let me be quiet now. And I'd love for you two to introduce yourselves. Shelly, you first, your background, and then what you do at U Beauty, please.
Yeah, sure. My name is Shelly Nghiem. I've been in the beauty industry for almost 10 years now. I actually started more in the color cosmetics, mass beauty channel sector on brands like Wet n Wild, Milani, worked at Too Faced for a bit. And then prior to U Beauty, I was at a premium CBD brand actually. So I've had a lot of different experience kind of in the beauty and health and wellness space. And I'm currently the director of e-commerce at U Beauty. I actually joined earlier this year in February, so gearing up for our first Black Friday Cyber Monday with U Beauty, which is super exciting. And I help manage the retention strategy and the website customer journey and website optimization. So
I
yeah,
love
really
it. Thank
excited to
you.
be
I
here.
have 40 follow-ups, but I'm going to hold off until AJ introduces himself and then we'll get right into it. AJ, please take it away.
Yeah, I'm AJ Patel. I work as the SVP of Growth for U Beauty. Been with the brand for a little over 3 years now. Prior to this, spent nearly a decade with Unilever Prestige, working across their portfolio of brands. U Beauty is a luxury skincare brand for those of you that don't know and are interested. And we have a patented siren capsule technology, which allows us to utilize much lower levels of actives versus traditional skincare brands and have multifunctional benefits utilizing multiple different ingredients in a single formula.
AJ, just for clarification on the VP or SVP of growth side of things, like what is your purview, like everything retention, acquisition, loyalty, kind of like you run the gamut?
Anything digital, basically. So whether that be our Amazon business, our direct consumer business, our retail media, anything along
Cool.
those
Thank you.
lines.
All right, Shelly, you're on the hot seat right now. I want to talk about you're running into Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You have obviously so much experience. I'm like, this isn't your first rodeo running a brand, not even a beauty brand, as you mentioned, no CBD, but back in the day, like Milani, Too Faced. What are you kind of, as you've been gearing up for this first BFCM, like what has your main point of focus been? Has it been on the retention side? Is it much more that side experience side? Like where have you been spending your time for the last couple months?
Yeah, it's definitely about warming the audience and gearing up. Email is one of our biggest channels for sure. So it's making sure deliverability is at a good place. Any test and an A/B test we want to run, we've ran it in the past few months. Even from the like Lightbox experience from the pop-up, we want to make sure everything is cohesive. So I think gearing up for BFCM, it's like trying to do all those tests and learning beforehand so that we can execute and just run when
I
the
love
time
it. In
comes.
terms of like the customer experience side of the house as well, like have you kind of updated loyalty experience and subscription? Like, are you guys touching on that? Obviously, AJ, I want you to jump in as well, but Shelly, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think as much as we can, even our something from like our welcome flow, we've updated already earlier this year. We actually did a subscription migration right before a few weeks ago now at this point. So really making sure that's dialed in and optimized for this time of the year. So yeah, just lots of updates
I
to
love it.
have happened this year.
Let me actually ask one quick one there for others. Like, what software did you move towards and how's it going so far? Like on the subscription side?
Yeah, AJ, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, we moved to Skio and we've had a wonderful experience kind of so far. I think the onboarding experience was definitely pretty smooth and migration overall was relatively smooth too. And we're really excited around some of the new core functionality that they'll provide versus our previous
I love it.
provider.
AJ, when you and I have talked, right? Like you obviously get to see this like whole end-to-end experience, and obviously like subscription is so core to you beauty. Yeah. What are some of the like trying to figure out what the right way to ask this is? What are the like best practices on a subscription side? Or if you're thinking about driving that, is it you just make it dead simple to subscribe and dead simple to unsubscribe? Is it like there are specific benefits that you're creating that you weren't able to create before? Like what does great look like on the subscription side of the house?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you want to definitely have a great customer experience. So we have surprise and delight gifting. We have additional perks which subscription customers receive by moving up in tier in our loyalty program. There's also, they can redeem their loyalty points for subscription orders too. So just really making sure that the subscription program is well integrated within the overall e-commerce experience is kind of the focus for us. Also, I think for any of the brands out there, segmenting out subscription customers versus one-time customers is something that we found recently is really beneficial for us, and not over communicating, because at the end of the day, these customers are loyal, and really what they're interested in is newness and education versus, trying to drive promo and stuff like that.
I think you're muted.
I am. I'm also like mid coffee. I'm going to get there today, Shelly. So this is a good start. Thank you. AJ, I want you to keep going on this. Like, I love the concept of segmenting out the subscriber, right? Versus the prospect or the one-time purchaser or even the lapsed person, I assume. Is that in terms of like messaging cadence? Is it the message? Is it across every channel? Is it site experience? Like, where do you guys start and stop?
I think right now we've kind of implemented it for messaging cadence and the messages that we are sending to customers. In the future, I definitely could see this being more of an on-site personalization effort too, where we have for subscription customers. We're not quite there yet, but I think that that's something definitely that we're interested in developing and building out, because subscription customers are a large portion of our business, and they're super valuable for the brand. And at the end of the day, these are the customers that are going to speak loudly around the product and really, drive referral and drive kind of, new customer growth with their friends and families.
I kind of want to go back to what you mentioned about Unilever Prestige for a minute and thinking about like, what are the things that you're taking from that experience that are like kind of best practices that you were able to bring to beauty? And one of the things where it's like, okay, this was like a massive company with massive resources and all the like brands and everything that kind of you're not at this point able to bring.
I think the biggest change for me since being at UBeauty is the agility that we have, right? We can test a new technology in the span of days, not months. There was a heavy procurement process which we had at Unilever when we were signing on a new vendor. And I'm sure you've gone through that with Orita, trying to get with some of the larger CPG players. And so, just having that flexibility to test and learn and iterate and, really try to develop new technology solutions that enhance the customer experience has been great for us. Some good learnings. I mean, I think some of the data analytics that we had at Unilever were really strong, and, what we were looking at from a data standpoint, it has helped drive kind of the analytics roadmap for the beauty business. I would say also from a customer experience perspective, there was a lot of rigor around CS, and we've been able to implement some of that with beauty too. And I would say process is really the biggest one too. We have, I think, a pretty dialed down process here in terms of how we put creative tasks and things like that in work.
You guys are, in my experience, deeply analytical. And, we serve a couple hundred brands at this point. We see big guys, small guys, to your point, the ones who put us through the ringer with, hey, do SOC 2, do GDPR, right? And the ones who are like, cool, let's just go and test. You guys are definitely at that forefront. Shelly, you also already mentioned testing and getting ahead of BFCM. What are some of the things that you've been testing? Is it like truly that content and the flows? Is it anything beyond that? Are there softwares that you've been trying out that are interesting that you might want to share about?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the content is a big one. Even something, especially for BFCM, we've started testing plain text emails versus image emails because we've been seeing that, having some success. So testing that ahead of time and even carrying that, that we saw that there was a lot of success with the plain text emails. So we're carrying that through our BFCM strategy as well. Even just something like placement of the promo code on the welcome emails. So there's always like a lot of testing going on in the background from a content perspective. And then, we're always testing new partners within our email strategy. So it's been a lot to learn, especially coming from my background where I didn't have as much testing capabilities. But it's definitely been really interesting.
It's very cool about the plain text. Is it more a matter of you're able to land in the inbox and it's performing more, or is there something beyond that where you think it's just speaking to the audience in a more kind of comfortable colloquial way? What do you attribute the success of that to?
Yeah, I definitely think it's the placement is really strong, as well as, sometimes when you have a lot of imagery, that can slow down the load times, so it just loads faster. And then we're able to also test different things like who the sender name is. If it's like not just you beauty, but it's like someone from a customer or service team that's sending the message, or maybe it's, Tina, our founder from you beauty, sending the message. We see a lot better open rates. So it's just something to diversify the campaigns that we're sending and to really
And
just
when it
stand out in the
says from
inbox.
AJ, nobody opens, or what's AJ? What's it?
No, not as much.
AJ, jump in, please.
No, I think also within that, we've done a lot of testing with flows too. I think that's been really interesting and helpful for us too, pre-BFCM. That's something that we'll continue to iterate and develop. I think every single brand should be testing. They'll have at least one test running on their welcome series at any given moment. So, and I think that that's really one of the biggest strategies for us from a retention standpoint is improving kind of the flows, and then utilizing our learnings from that with our campaign sends too. In terms of creative diversification, just in general, I think that's a hot topic with the Andromeda update and where Meta is heading now from an optimization standpoint. We've definitely done a lot more or placed a larger kind of focus on creative diversity and making sure that we have diverse content.
I got a couple follow-ups from that. It's really interesting. And you talk about this like it's self-evident to everybody. And again, you guys are definitely at the forefront. So I'm going to push for a little bit more. The one is when you talk about testing with flows and you mentioned, hey, you should always be testing the welcome flow or any flow, which is great. Are you also experimenting with new types of flows, or are there any like big takeaways that you've had where it's like, hey, look, you really just need a welcome flow, you need a abandoned cart flow, you need a subscription cancellation flow, and maybe two others, and then within that you're testing, or what's your framework?
We have a lot of that run, maybe even a few too many. So we're actually, um, rationalizing the number of flows that we have down, and we feel like we don't want to oversend to the consumer and annoy them, right? So that's a really big kind of focus for us too, is what is driving value for the customer? Where are we seeing engagement and revenue? And if it's not something which is performing well from either of those two KPIs, let's really rethink if it's necessary to send it to the consumer.
Maybe specifically given how strong you guys are and like at the forefront on subscriptions, are there specific flows that you think somebody who's running a subscription brand should be inspecting that may not be self-evident to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big learnings since we moved over is that you should leverage the transactional flows more. And so we're starting to do more testing there. Um, these are the emails which the subscriber is really going to engage with because they want to learn that their package is on their way to their credit card information. So these
Mhm.
are the informations where you can include more content and you'll see some engagement with that content.
And I'll also add with, since moving to Skio, we've had the opportunity to really optimize the cancel flows because that's a really strong feature of Skio that we didn't have previously. So really understanding why a customer may potentially be churning or leaving the program. And that information is so powerful because you can then, remarket to them based on that exact reason why they may be canceling. Or if it's like a product issue that they experience, it's something like our customer service team can reach out directly and see if they can
It's
resolve
really
that
fascinating.
issue.
So you get to learn about the customer at a deeper level of depth, and whether that's just like, hey, look, we're so sorry, we're on top of it right now. That's one path. The other path is when eventually we're going to try to re-earn that customer's trust. You think you can approach it in a smarter way. I love it. Shelly, one of the other questions I had for a follow-up, and then AJ, I'm going to come back to the performance marketing side because we still have to go down that path. Shelly, when you're doing these flows and you're thinking about tests, are there specific things that you're seeing in flows that you're bringing into campaigns? Or is it like you think about these as kind of two separate worlds right now?
Yeah, no, the flows are such a great place because of the volume of things that come out of the flows, like specifically welcome. So there's a lot of learnings in terms of like content or color palette or, CTA testing that we can take from the flows and apply to campaigns. And actually what's more interesting too is that sometimes with our campaigns, we see content that's really surprising to us that does really well. For example, typically in emails, you try to be more short and succinct with copy, but we actually find that a lot of our educational or editorial long form emails do really well. And so when we see results like that, we consider, okay, maybe this type of campaign email would actually do really well in a welcome flow because it provides a lot of education that a lot of our newer users are more
It's really
interested in.
interesting. I was thinking about it like you can have the CTA and like the clarity at the top, and then below the fold is unlimited space if you want it. Now, going back to what you said before, is if load time is slow, that's a problem. But you guys have, from what I can tell, like such an attuned audience that people are definitely curious. I love that you're, sorry, I'm just kind of fanboying out. Like, I love that you're testing that. And then, you've kind of taken that and immediately brought it into your kind of like your normal experience. AJ, when I was running a brand, which was all my gray hairs ago, right? So this was like 2010 to 2017. What we would do is we would test with SEM in order to figure out SEO, and then we would write long tail SEO, dot, dot, dot. How do you think about the performance budget? Forget like everything that you do in there, but specifically to bringing back into maybe your retention experience or your customer journey. Like, are you testing content? You kind of mentioned, are you testing creative? Are you thinking about these things completely differently? And then also, it's like, what are you doing today, and what do you want to be doing? Like, what's your journey?
Yeah, I mean, from a paid perspective, majority of our efforts are with customer acquisition. So there are definitely some learnings that we can apply to the welcome flow. We don't run a ton of retention marketing in paid. It just, we utilize channels which are low cost and more cost effective, like email, SMS, etc., to drive engagement with that customer base, except for really these temple moments like BFCM, where driving retention through paid makes a lot of sense for the brand and for the business. But yeah, I mean, I think that creative diversity is something that we've started to implement more across our email campaigns too. Product versus model versus, model holding a product focus. How can we utilize some of those learnings to inform decisions as we decide to design new email templates or new flows, etc., or update flows.
Whether it's on the like performance side or on the retention side, are there any like Gen AI tools you're using for personalization or for creative testing, or just to like spin up a bunch, whether it's like to enable your team or just to like replace different apps?
Yeah, we really haven't focused heavily on Gen AI yet. I think that there's still a lot that needs to be refined, especially from a brand look and feel perspective. We haven't really found a tool which gets us to where we really want it to be. We do utilize, tools like Zamo and things like that, which make emails more dynamic, which we really like too. And then obviously we utilize Orita too, for segmentation and really trying to engage with those top tier customers. Yeah, I would say that from a Gen AI perspective, though, we haven't really done too much. We also do utilize some tools for kind of retention and identifying customers. So we utilize tools like, your grounds out there. There's a various different number of tools which kind of do that piece and help us try to identify when it's the correct time to engage with the customer.
That's cool. Shelly, if you think about like a request for startups, right? Which is a weird way to think about it, but like what are the changes that you're looking forward to happening with AI? Right? Like Gen AI isn't there yet. And you beauty, you guys are like luxury, right? So you've got to tell that story in like such a way
Mhm.
that you can't let me have a bad touch point, right? Like you're almost, I'll say it, right? Like you don't want to take that risk. What are the things that are like
Mhm.
actually you're excited will allow you to do your job as kind of like owning the retention side of the house or owning that customer journey better?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI is still constantly evolving. I think almost every potential new startup or tech company we're talking to is utilizing AI in a certain way. I think for us, especially as a luxury brand, having that AI be very focused and, specific, maybe in skincare is like something that we'd be interested in. Because I think right now AI is very broad in general, which is probably why we haven't utilized it as much. Because we definitely still want that customer to have that experience, even if it's AI or our, personal concierge program, to have that experience of like what they would have in a department store, like behind a beauty counter, a very personalized experience that kind of matches the luxury side of our brand. So I think that's something that we'd be more interested in versus just like a general AI that can, do the job of our customer service team. Whereas, we feel like our customer service team is already really strong and we wouldn't want to trade that
I
for
love it.
AI.
It's interesting to hear. And obviously we talked to a ton of brands about this. We have decided to stay at Orita like super narrow only on the segmentation side. our take is there's amazing stuff coming in the Gen AI side. Like Klaviyo's building their tools, or I mean, I could give you guys a list of 20 startups that I'm like, one of these guys is going to be a public company. I just don't know which type of thing, where there's so much innovation in the space. And that personalization matters. But for us, we're like, cool, let that world happen. And there are amazing agencies, and you have the insight internally and all the stuff, specifically staying narrow, because we're just like, we don't know where the Gen AI world is going. It is cool. I miss running a brand because I don't get to experiment. I keep thinking about going to start something just on a lark and, screwing it up, but just so I can go play around with the tools. When you guys think about the luxury side of things, I kind of have two different paths I want to go down. One is Amazon, AJ, because you mentioned that. Like, how do you maintain a luxury presence on Amazon? And then the second is just like, generally, how are you growing so aggressively and in like a good way with like a lot of love while maintaining that? But maybe we start with the Amazon side first. Like, where does Amazon fit into the bigger picture strategy, and how do you keep it grounded in what makes you beauty, you beauty?
I think at this point, Amazon is really table stakes for any brand, whether they're luxury or not. You have your most affluent consumers who shop on Amazon, especially, that Prime subscriber who really is excited around the operational efficiencies of purchasing from Amazon. And I think at the end of the day, we want to make our products available where our consumers are at. And we see a large portion of our consumers that exist on Amazon. I don't think we're very, precious around where our product exists, as long as there's a market for our product there. So Amazon's really, at this point, table stakes for most luxury. And we do have a strong partnership with the luxury, Amazon luxury, and we're continuing to see growth through that channel. And I think, a lot of it is retention from a net new customer acquisition perspective. Amazon's a little bit harder to play in from a luxury standpoint, but, we want to provide the opportunity for our customers to repurchase or purchase from wherever they would like and
It's
see fit.
interesting. Shelly, for you, when you're kind of running your retention side and you've got emails and flows and that's like everything that you guys do, how do you think about attributing impact when it's to an Amazon, or are you kind of like only looking at what you can directly see on the site and just, that there's a halo effect? Like, how do you process all that data?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a halo effect. And we actually do see that sometimes the Amazon customer is separate from the D2C customer. There's always going to be customers that only shop on Amazon or don't want to shop anywhere else because they are Prime subscribers. So it's not too big of an issue. So we do still see them pretty much as separate entities. Obviously, like during big sale periods like Prime Day or Black Friday, Cyber Monday, there's going to be a lot of overlap because those timings do overlap. But for the most part, we don't have too much issue with kind of the overlapping between the D2C customer and the Amazon customer. And we're actually seeing growth on both channels. So that's really exciting.
Are there other channels, like as you guys think about an omni-channel strategy, that you're starting to play around with, or if not specific on the distribution side, even on the ad side, that AJ, you're just excited to go explore next?
Yeah, I mean, I think, TikTok is one which comes
I've
top
heard of
of
it.
mind. Yeah. Yeah. I think TikTok Shops last year did over $1 billion in business. So it's definitely becoming a larger piece of the pie. And, I don't think they've quite figured out luxury yet, but I imagine it's something which is at the forefront of their team's minds. And we're starting to dabble and test a little bit with TikTok Shops and seeing kind of how we can drive, new customer acquisition, because there is really an untapped audience. 40% of the TikTok audience doesn't exist on any other social media platform. So, we're trying to, target some net new customers through that platform, and we're seeing some wins and some losses, and I think we'll continue to iterate on it, testing as that
And
platform
if I'm a
grows.
customer of yours and I buy or I find you through different channels, going back to that luxury experience, is it at the end of the day, the product is awesome, the packaging is wonderful, and like that is the thing that will, like, the product being great is at the core of everything? Or is there anything else you guys are doing to kind of like maintain that luxury halo around it as well?
No, I think the product is great. We definitely want to do distribution to, like, a lower tier merchant or marketplace. So we are very selective. We did choose Amazon, obviously. We see a benefit of being in that marketplace from a retention standpoint. But you're not necessarily going to see us anytime soon in a Target or Walmart.
Yeah. I mean, I love that at the core. It's just like you beauty is you beauty, and then like meet your customers where they're at. And I think some brands just end up being way too precious about that. Uh, anyway, thank you. All right, I got a couple more that I want to like. We're in the world of AI, and I have to ask about AEO. How does this come into you guys? How are you thinking about this on kind of across the board? I'll let either one of you start, whoever's most interested.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one if you want, Shelly. So yeah, from an AEO standpoint, we're really focused on building out content where AEO platforms are pulling content from. So looking at authoritative sources, Reddit, although that's become a little bit less prominent recently with some of the updates that have been made. Also developing net new content is still valuable for the brand, but it's I think developing net new content. Whereas before you would just do a bunch of keyword stuffing to get SEO rank, it's really answering the questions that consumers are asking. So looking at those long form questions and understanding what type of content would answer those types of questions. We also do a lot with our third party partner like Firmat to develop AEO funnels and develop AEO content there too, which we've seen some success with, and we're continuing to test there too.
You guys work with all the coolest companies. I think I have I'm late on a text to Risha. Format is awesome. So I love that you're playing with those guys as well. Guys, I've asked you a lot. I feel like I've got 400 more, but I'm not going to keep pushing because I don't want you to reveal state secrets. I just like, you've given a lot of takeaways for brand owners, for tech companies. So thank you. I do want to create a little bit of space though. If there's any other advice you want to share, Shelly, whether it's like tied to BFCM or kind of getting ready for 2026, but kind of what's top of mind for you that you want to make sure people are hearing and thinking about?
That's a great question. I think we're always looking to test different channels, but I do think there's sometimes if you over test and you try to jump into new channels too quickly and you kind of spread your resources really thin. So it's really about like mastering those channels we're really in. So, really on the retention side, we're still highly focused on email and SMS and continuing to be masters in that area. But like to AJ's point, like I think especially as a luxury brand, just being really careful of not being into too many channels all at once. So really figuring out like where the audience is and what makes the most sense. Obviously continue to test and learn, but it always has to come back to like where the audience is and what makes the most sense for them and
I
what
love it.
benefits them.
One of the best marketers I know told me like 15 years ago, and it's a phrase that always sticks with me, which is your brand is only as strong as its weakest touch point. And I feel like you guys don't just say that, but you literally live it. And even this advice right here is like, hey, like you can keep testing, but make sure that you're kind of dialed in on the things that are really working. Shelly, that's great. Thank you. AJ, last word to you. Any big advice you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think really think about your brand. With luxury, for example, I think of it as playing a video game on ultra hard mode because you can't use discounts and you can't use newness as frequently as maybe other brands in the mass space can to drive growth and scale. So really focus on your core. I think a lot of brands sometimes forget about the core product which are selling and what made the brand successful. So making sure that that's always top of mind as you think around BFCM and you think around your growth strategy for 2026, lean in there because at the end of the day, most brands, unless you're a multi-billion dollar brand, in which case you probably do have significant amount of awareness, there's still untapped audiences that don't know anything around your core product, or even your brand itself. So really making sure you lean into core is, I think, something which a lot of brands forget sometimes.
I love it. Thank you. And then we got a couple weeks until Black Friday, but you guys aren't only a 2-week of the year company. You're around the year, of course. Where can folks find you? AJ, I'll defer to you.
Yeah, you can find us on ubeauty.com or Amazon. And so we're excited. People try our products. Really, when people try our products, it's an experience. And I think that's why we have above average retention rates for the vertical.
You guys are, I mean, obviously like a wonderful product, but also just a wonderful business around it. So many amazing nuggets today. Thank you. I really appreciate you spending the time, especially in the run up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I know it is hectic. So thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder and co-CEO of Orita.ai. We build AI customer segmentation for some of Klaviyo's biggest brands like Oriana, Spanx, Caraway, Third Love, True Classic, Run Beauty, and on and on. Brands come to us to help find untapped revenue, improve their click rate, drive away mean bots, and a bunch more. You can learn more or get a free customer engagement audit at Orita.ai.